Turn, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's House of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America.
Welcome to Reunion Roadmap with your hosts Al McCarn and Tefania Pappas. We're going to jump right into the conclusion of a three-part interview Tefania did with Glenn and Amanda Miller. They're telling us their story of hiking along the Israel National Trail. In the second part, we heard as they were walking up the Nahal Amud toward the town of Tzfat. So let's go on up to Oregon and hear the rest of the story with Glenn and Amanda.
Nahal Amud means pillar river. There's a natural rock formation that looks like a pillar that's on the river, but it was about a 3-day journey for us to go through that canyon. And we took a break on that too. And it was the hardest hike of our whole journey, where we got off of Nahal Amud and decided to go on another trail that went almost straight up for about 3 hours to the mountaintop village of Tzfat. And as we were hiking up that trail, we saw a rarity. I was sitting on a rock, and Amanda took a picture of me. When I look at this picture, I can see, man, I am pooped. My skin's all pink and red, and sweat just dripping off me, and I'm just like exhausted with my head hanging, and the weight of my pack is on this rock I'm sitting on. And she says, "There goes one of those rodents." And I said, "A hyrax." She said, "Yeah, a hyrax, and it's right up there above you to the left." And I looked up and I didn't see it. She said, "Oh, it went behind that rock." And she said, "Let's go up and look at it." So we went up. This is a really steep, just walking on rocks, not much of a trail, a goat trail maybe. Got up there, and there's no hyrax, but we saw a wild cat panting. And I said, "Wow, there's a wild cat there." And it was on a rock ledge, and it blended in with the rock ledge. There was a reddish color, rusty colored cat and rocks. And it was panting really hard. And I said, "I think we chased its lunch off, and it's catching its breath." But later on, I started thinking, maybe he was sitting on top of the hyrax waiting for us to leave so he could dig into lunch. But when we got to Tzfat and got Wi-Fi in the Wi-Fi range again, I Googled it. It's called a sand cat. It's like a big house cat. It's bigger than a big house cat. And anyway, we saw it. I don't know how many people have ever seen a sand cat, but I don't think too many people have. We never ran into anybody else that had. Oh yeah, we got to the top. We got to a somewhat of a top, but not to Tzfat, but we got to a summit of this gorge, and it turns into a dirt road. And we're walking down this dirt road, and Amanda yells, "Snake!" I look up really fast, and this snake has already crossed the road. She said it. I could tell this snake was fast. It was a black, shiny snake. It was so shiny that I thought it had a white stripe on it, but it was the sun glistening on it. And I only saw the last third of it. She said it was about 4 feet long and about 4 inches in diameter. It was going over the bottom rung, or the bottom. It was going over a barbed wire fence. I don't know why it didn't crawl under it, but it went over it, because I saw the last third of it going over a barbed wire fence. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Later on, talking to Ephraim and his son Yonatan, they said, "Oh, the black snakes, you don't have to worry about them. They're not poisonous. It's the Palestinian viper. I guess there's 7 poisonous snakes, but that's the only snake we saw was this black one that they said, no problem." But we get up to Tzfat. We finally get to Tzfat, and it's the toughest climb and the toughest day we had. It's just, we were beat. And it was so good. We spent the night there, and all the next day there. We spent 2 nights there, didn't we? So we really took a break there again. We love taking our breaks. But
we met Aviva.
We go out to dinner. It's a really neat little restaurant. And Aviva and her boyfriend are sitting next to us. And I don't know if they're listening in on our conversation or how we got into a conversation, but we got into a conversation. And it was a really good one. And she asked the typical question, are you Jewish or are you Christian? So we told her, we're from the house of Israel. We're lost sheep of the house of Israel, booted out. And they knew all about it. And they said, this is so interesting. And she works at an information booth or an information office. After having a great conversation with both of them that night, exchanging email addresses and phone numbers and all that, we went and met her again the next day and at her information booth. And she was really nice to us and brought us sliced apples and water. And we sit around and talk to her. She tells us, this is really interesting. She tells us, we think she's Jewish. She looks Jewish. Whatever Jews look like, she did. She's in her 30s. She said, I was born Catholic. My parents were Catholic. I was born in San Jose, California. When I was 4 years old, we saw the movie Fiddler on the Roof. I told my parents, I'm not Catholic. I'm Jewish. And her parents, I don't know if they shrugged their shoulders and what's got into our daughter or what all happened there, but she insisted she was Jewish. She wouldn't do the First Holy Communion that the Catholics do. She wouldn't do the confirmation. She wouldn't do anything Catholic. She always insisted. A 4-year-old insisting all of her life. And she finally made Aliyah, converted to Judaism, made Aliyah, and moved to Tzfat. And here she is. And she did her service in the Israel Defense Forces too. She said it was the toughest thing that she's ever done because she was a little older. I think she was 24, 25 years old, whereas most of the girls are 17 or 18. And she said, they're tough. Those Israeli girls are tough. And she had a hard time cutting the mustard, but she was another one that we met that was just really nice to us and really interesting.
Well, her boyfriend, we know that he's an Ephraimite, but he was going to go through the process because he wants to move to Israel. And so we think, he was going to convert to Judaism so that he could do that. And we tried to tell him, he was an Ephraimite and we'll be able to do it ourselves someday.
When we were in Tzfat, we're thinking that canyon we just hiked up with snakes and wild cats and hyraxes would be too dangerous to hike back down the next day. We might slip and fall because it was not a trail. It was rocks and steep. So we decided that we're going to take a bus and go to the nearest intersection of this Nahal Hamud, the Pillar River, and get back on the trail there. So we're thinking, well, where's the bus station spot? Let's go look for it. So we start walking along. Amanda spots an Orthodox Jewish looking guy, with the seat and wearing the black and everything. And she asks him, she's on one side of the road and I'm on the other. And she asks him, and I can hear, and he's speaking English too. And I'm like, gosh, I can't believe it. So we go talk to him, or he talks to us. He tells us how to get to the bus station, all right, but he also was born Catholic on the East Coast, and his parents moved to Fairbanks, Alaska when he was 3 years old. He grew up in Fairbanks. He told his parents, I'm not going to be Catholic. I'm going to become Jewish. I'm going to convert to Judaism. And so he does, and he meets a nice Jewish girl. They get married. They have a kid, a little boy, baby boy, and his name is Avi Chai. Avi Chai is born with Down syndrome. He's telling this whole story on the street in Tzfat. And we're like, wow, how we keep meeting these people that have really interesting stories. And so it's a typical, I guess, a common thing for a Down syndrome baby to have to have a heart operation. And Avi Chai had to have a heart operation when he was 6 months old, I think it was. It made the news all over Alaska. Another family in Anchorage who had a little baby Down syndrome girl wanted to meet them. So they made a visit to Fairbanks and met the family, his name was Israel Avraham Ben Baruch, the man we met on the street. He said that the woman and the baby, or the mom and dad of this baby girl from Anchorage came to visit on a beautiful cold March day or whatever it was in Fairbanks. And what happened was they handed their baby to Avraham and his wife and said, and gave them her baby as a gift. He's just like giving away a human as a gift. It's like, wow. And to make a long story short, they made Aliyah, left Fairbanks, moved to Tzfat, and when Avi and the baby girl that they got as a gift was on Avi's first birthday. That happened on his first birthday that they got the second baby. When Avi Chai and Karen is the little baby girl's name, when she's 12 and he's 13 years old, they go to the Western Wall to have their bat and bar mitzvahs. They decide that they wanted to marry each other. They're not blood related or anything. And they told their parents they want to get married to each other. So Avraham Israel Ben Baruch told us, if you Google or go on YouTube and write Avichai Karen love story, it's pretty neat. It's the story of these two Downs, and they're adults. They got married, and it's on. You can see it on YouTube. And we just we eventually found the bus station, and and then went there the next morning and rode and got down to the Nahal Amud and hiked some more. But these times of rest off the trail and meeting people were always awesome. One interesting tidbit of a couple people that you may know, when we hiked to Tiberias, when we got to Tiberias, we had heard about a gal named Avigail that has a bed and breakfast, and she's friends with Ephraim and Ramona Frank. We stayed with her, and we had a great time with her. Right away, we just felt like we knew her, and she was like a sister. Yeah, she just felt like, wow, this is really neat. We have so much in common. And she's an Ephraimite. She's lived in the land for 28 years in Tiberias. She's got a beautiful bed and breakfast. But what's amazing to me is Ephraim Frank, who's an Ephraimite, living in the land also, grew up in a little town of 1,000 people in Wisconsin. And Avigail, an Ephraimite living in the land, also grew up in the same little town in Wisconsin. There's a scripture, it's in Jeremiah 3, it might be 3:14 or something like that. I'm not sure, but it says, I will take one from a city and I will take two from a family. And he's talking about returning Ephraim, the house of Israel, to the land of Israel. That's what this Jeremiah 3 is about. It's a great, and it's just really neat. He just blesses us. Every morning I'd wake up and open up the Bible, and that Jeremiah 3 came up 2 or 3 times. I just happened to open it up to that and reading about how he's going to gather us. He's going to kibbutz us. The root is kibbutz, when he says he's going to gather and assemble us back in the land of our fathers. But Ephraim,
actually, his sister went to school with Abigail in this town of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't advertise on VRBO or anything because she wants to, she's dedicated her place to Yahweh, and she wants to have, Ephraimites and Jewish people, the whole house of Israel, to have a place to stay when they are visiting.
And it's a beautiful place, and she
overlooks the Sea of
beautiful
Galilee.
Breakfast, and she's just the super hostess.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, when we first met her, we just felt like, wow, we feel like we just have known her. And she's same with Ephraim and Ramona. The first time I met them was here in the Rogue Valley. They came to speak at the local library here. But as soon as I met them, I felt the same way. Like, wow, I love Ephraim and Ramona. And then when we visited their daughter and Baram and Shaul, I felt the same way. Just like there's such beautiful people that are such a blessing. And then when we went to the B'nai Yosef Congress and we met the Pattersons, same feeling. When we met the Rambos, when we met you guys, when we met
the Pattersons, they had told us about how they were traveling to different places, and they mentioned Sandpoint, Idaho. And so I said, did you fellowship with anybody while you were there? And they said, yeah, some people named, no, I said, were they the Edmondson family? And they said, yes. And so we knew them. We knew the Edmondsons when we lived in Northern California before they moved to Sandpoint. So It's just how Yahweh gets, Ephraimites find each other and meet other people that are connected. It's just great.
Yahweh's the great conductor, and we are part of his orchestra, I guess. And he's conducting and getting everything, all of us, moving in the right direction.
Have you thought about writing a book about these experiences?
Yeah, I used my iPad, and I type, and so I have a keypad on it, and I was typing every day, every morning usually before we got on the trail. I'd be writing about what happened the day before.
Doing a journal.
And then the iPad, I can take pictures too. A lot of times my iPad was in my backpack, and Amanda's iPhone was way more handy, so she got a lot more pictures of a lot of these people than I did. But I got a few of them, especially when my big backpack wasn't on my back. On those days of rest, I took more pictures.
We also took a break and went to Jerusalem for Passover.
Yeah.
So that was, we had planned to do that because our friends that used to fellowship with us here in Oregon, they moved to Aqaba, Jordan. And so we knew they were going to be going with Kimberly Rogers Brown and, some other people that live in their community in Aqaba. So that was really great to see our friends again. And then we also got to meet other people in their community, their Ephraimite community in Aqaba.
Well, we're getting towards the end of this interview portion, and you've had a lot of ventures in the land of Israel, and you've shared about how the Father has led you down this walk. Any final words that you'd like to say to our listeners out there?
The land is good. The people were good to us and blessed us, and Yahweh always led us. There were several times when the sun was going down, and we were on a steep mountain, wondering if there was going to be any flat ground for us to sleep, or not. We not knowing where we were going to sleep, and we just pray as we walked, and all of a sudden He would bless us and find some level ground with a nice patch of grass, or somebody would come up and say, "Follow me. I have a place for you to stay." It was just over and over and over that we were being blessed and led and blessed some more, and it was just a really, really good experience. We want to go back again. We feel like we have unfinished business. We have more trail to hike, and we also know that we got lost, and we know that the Hexes who wrote the book Walk the Land got lost a lot, because they talked a lot about getting lost. So in their book, we want to, maybe Pete Rambo told me, or we told him, that we want to volunteer to go back and paint trail markers, because some of them are faded, some of them are non-existent, some of them are just hard to find, and we want to go do something that's beneficial to other hikers so they don't get lost like we, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And Pete Rambo mentioned or suggested bringing a couple of kids too, to get them to help with this.
And experience hiking part of the land too.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm sure we'll probably look at having you back again on the air. And this is Stefania Pappas, Communications Director for B'nai Yosef North America, signing off.
Shalom.
Shalom. Lehitraot.
Here's Will Spires singing I Am Yahweh from his album The Return, available at keyofdavidpublishing.com.
You'll have one king, and no more be two. You'll belong to me, and I to you. I open graves, new life to give, put my spirit in you and make you live. I am Yahweh. Yahweh. I'm returning Yehuda to my holy land, have again chosen Yerushalayim. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. I'll place Joseph too in my promised land. You'll know it was me and not a man. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I'll make you two sticks, one in my hand. You'll be one people living in my land. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. No more will you defile and transgress. In righteousness you will be dressed. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. You'll have one king and no more two. You'll belong to me and I to you. I'll make your houses echad and your branches wood. The time is near, has indeed come. To give, put my spirit in you and make you live. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. I'm returning Yehuda to my holy land, have again chosen Yerushalayim. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. Place Joseph too in my promised land. You'll know it was me and not a man. I am Yahweh, Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Midrash portion of Reunion Roadmap. And with me today, this is Barry Phillips. Shalom, Barry.
Shalom, David. Good to be with you.
And we're here. We want to talk a little bit about an interesting take on some things. We were talking a little bit earlier off air about perception versus reality and how often these two things really don't line up. Let's just kind of put it that way. And the way we see things may not necessarily be wrong, but it may not necessarily be right, but maybe it's just how all these things, there's so many facets to how all this works together. And how do we regain focus when there's so many things that are being established that may or may not be true? We have to go back and learn to realign ourselves with what the word says. And how do we do that? That's kind of a tough way to kind of get moving, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So when we were thinking about that, the first thing I thought of, which we've got, hopefully we can make it in their time. We've got at least 3 really good instances and examples that we want to share with everyone today on perception versus reality. And we've recently been reading through the Torah, and we had a parsha that was Shalach. It's Numbers 13, and where the spies were sent into the land. I don't like using that word spies, but for lack of a better word, let's use the word spies. And they were sent into the land, and they were supposed to gather information and bring back the fruit and to do all this. And you guys know the story, okay? You've read it. They went as 12 being sent on a mission, and they came back 10 against 2, split. And so what caused the division? What caused the divide? I mean, they saw the same things. They ate the same fruit. I mean, I don't believe there was manna in the land. Once they got in the land, they partook of the land. So it's kind of to me, taste and see that the Lord is good. And here's the promise. Now taste it and see. It's right in front of you. It's good stuff. And so they go in, they taste the fruit of the land. They see all these things, and it's amazing. And instead of doing what they were supposed to do, saying, report on the people, then show us the fruit, which would have been, there's these giants, there's these dudes that are like really bad, but look how great this fruit is. Look how great the land is. And God said, it's ours. Yay. Let's go get it. But they kind of did that in reverse order. Yeah, here's the fruit, but man, these guys, so what's the difference there? And I think that's where we get into reality versus perception. They both saw the same things. But the problem was not what they saw. The problem was how they perceived what they saw. And I'm going to take it another step further and see what you think about this, Barry. It's not just what they perceived, but I'm going to kind of change that word a little bit. How they interpreted what they saw.
Right.
And that, I think, is where we can get into some problems, because the word is the only constant truth that we have. The problems we get into is how we interpret that word. And Barry, you were saying something earlier about the interpretation process, about how we tend to interpret things by and through what?
Our past experiences, our cultural leanings, our biases, dare I say our prejudices, maybe, whatever our paradigm is, our perspective, sometimes we have, whether we would admit it or not, some folks still have some racial prejudices, and that's a problem. We'll talk about that in a little while. There are group prejudices. I'm going to be careful how to say this. Some of us are old enough that when we read of the perceived, interpreted antics and responses of the millennial generation, we see them as being a spoiled group that's afraid to endure or persevere, and they've got to have coloring books and Play-Doh to get through a crisis. So what are we doing? We are interpreting that generation through the background experience of our generation or that of our parents. And it's just perspective. Now, I'm not justifying or condemning the millennial generation on either side. I'm just saying that that's a perspective that we older adults have, and we judge other generations through that particular filter that we have.
Now, I agree, and I think that's what the spies did when they went into the land. They were not necessarily encouraged being in the wilderness the amount of time they had been there, and so when they went in, they went in with a kind of a defeated mentality already. And I find it really cool how this comes about, and we'll kind of hit this and move on to the next instance, is that Numbers chapters 15, we are given something that we are supposed to see as a reminder: do not follow the way you think about things. Literally, it says that you don't follow your eyes, that you go whoring after your own desires.
Right.
But it says, so we, which you guys know, if you know, I'm talking about the CTO that you wear on your garments. And the idea of this is you still have a choice. You can choose to, when you see that, it to be a reminder that, you know what, the way I feel about something doesn't really matter. And that's huge in today's society because, it's, well, the way I see it, that's the way it is. And not necessarily. It's the way he sees it. It's the way Yah sees it. And we need to be able to step back and say, okay, this is the way I see it, but Yah said this. And so how do we respond to that? So we do have a choice in everything that we do. We have a choice to see what the Father is desiring for us to see and realize we may not have it all answered and figured out, or we have a choice to say maybe things are bigger than the way I see it, and the choice to not see it at all and continue in our own heart and desires and wander in the wilderness a little longer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How about that? So it's amazing that when we read through the Torah narratives, I don't remember seeing anywhere where Yah asked Moshe what he thought. Moshe, tell me how you feel about this. Moshe, will you counsel me on my intention to do this?
He tried it at the burning bush, didn't he, Moses? Oh, but who am I? That didn't work, did it?
Well, and the rabbis say that he argued for 3 days. Or 30 days, I think it is. I think they say he argued for 30 days.
Wow.
No, said someone else, please. Moshe had the same problem that Israel ended up having. They failed to see themselves in the way that Yah did.
Ooh.
Yah looks at us and he sees a certain character, a certain potential, a certain ability that's innate that we have never seen come to the surface. He cries out to Gideon, who's threshing wheat in a wine press. That's not where you thresh wheat. But he was doing it to hide it from the eyes of their adversaries.
That's right. That's right.
And the messenger says, "Hey, you mighty man of valor." And Gideon's looking around. Saying, Who, me? Are you kidding? Me? But Yah saw in him what he didn't see in himself. And he saw in David what his family didn't recognize in him. So these tourists, that when they went into the land, they didn't see who they were. All they saw was who the giants were. And that was their perspective problem.
Barry, I think that brings about a very good point that leads into something you had mentioned earlier from the book of Acts.
In the book of Acts, we have this Jewish congregation that has developed. They've received the outpouring of the Ruach HaKodesh. They are seeing thousands of fellow members of the house of Yehuda coming and accepting Messiah Yeshua. And they are joyfully walking together. They are enduring some persecution, but they're overcoming. And then these Goyim show up. And they're wanting to come in and sit in their synagogues. And they don't know the liturgy. And they don't know how to wear the tallit. They don't have a tallit. What are we going to do? I mean, they're not us. Who let them in? And it became a problem. They never, to a certain point, they had not thought of the nations receiving this. Their perspective was, this is a Jewish thing. And Yah was trying to show them, no, my perspective is not your interpretation. My perspective is a restoration of the nations, not just you. And so they had to determine what are not but what are Yah's scriptural protocols for the Goyim to come and listen to the teachings about Moshe and the commands and learn with us. Kiva had his own situation where he was taken to the house of Cornelius under protest.
Yeah.
He says,
that's a good one.
Yah's changed my perspective and shown me that I should not call unclean what he's called clean.
And he was talking about people, not food, by the way.
Isn't that interesting? And he recognized that. When the Ruach HaKodesh was poured out on Goim believers, the question was, was to forbid them then from being immersed or mikvah in water in the name of Messiah Yeshua and becoming a part of us. This is out of our hands, out of our control, and beyond our narrow-mindedness. Of course, that doesn't have any application for us today. That was all then.
No, that's not the way I see it, Barry. No, I'm kidding. Which kind of takes us along the lines into that last point. We've got just a little over 3 minutes, and let's hit that last point real quick, Barry. We talk about a woman who approached Yeshua, and those around Yeshua didn't really care for that.
Well, I think it's in Matthew 15, if I'm not mistaken. And the Syrophoenician woman comes in, has a daughter that's vexed. And this woman is desperate. Yeshua insults her, calls her a dog. You're a goyim dog, to which his Talmudim or his disciples would have agreed. Yes, get that woman out of here. She's bothering us. Who let her in here anyway? She's not with us. She's not of us. She doesn't have a covenant with you. She's outside the covenants, of course, what Ephesians chapter 2 would have described. And Yeshua insulted the woman. But she was desperate enough for her daughter to be delivered that she took the personal insult and still believed. Now, was Yeshua pushing her buttons or his Talmudim's buttons? Yes. He challenged their perspective. And, of course, he provoked this woman to a great level of belief, and her daughter was delivered. But Yeshua taught his Talmudim something important, that, of the women in Scripture that believe, a lot of them were from foreign places. The widow took care of Eliyahu. She was a Sidonian. She wasn't of the stock of Israel. So maybe we need to change our understanding, David, and realize that Yah is going to include people and do things a way that's going to be offensive to us, and we need to get over it because it's not our perspective or preferences that are in question here. It's his. That's
I think is an important key there. The Father is going to do things his way, not ours. And how we handle that, how we approach that, can drastically have an effect in our life. I think that's a good place to look at, because that's where we get into that perception versus reality danger. And when we say what is reality, well, reality is his word. Our perception is how we perceive that word, which is, again, where we sometimes go astray or sometimes go off. Because what happens when our perception doesn't meet up with what the word is saying? Well, who's wrong? Who's off? Well, it's not the Father. It's us. And so when we see situations in front of us, like you just said in the book of Acts, and like you said with the lady who came to Yeshua, we don't look at a person and say, well, they're this or they're that or they're the other thing, if we're not willing to look at them through the Father's eyes and to meet them where they're at. If they're coming to him, it doesn't matter where they're from. What matters is the heart of the Father in the midst of us all and working together in that. So someone's going to come into our congregations and they're not going to pronounce things the right way in our perspective. They're not going to follow our protocols and our liturgy exactly right. But if he's accepting them, we do too. The heart of the Father is to gather his people. And if our hearts are to be more towards gathering than scattering, I think that's where we have a little more patience with one another and a little more forgiving with one another. Indeed. And willing to work kindly toward one another. So any final thought, Barry? Well, it looks like we run smack out of time here. So I was just going to say, if you have questions or comments, you can send them to
Remnant Reunion Roadmap at B'naiYosefNA.com.
Once again, here's Will Spires singing Yahovah from The Beauty of Holiness, available at cdbaby.com.
Gate, I come unworthy in beating my breast. I am overcome that you took my place. I'm so aware I need your cleansing and grace. Yahovah, I want to worship you the way you created me to. This ground is holy as I cross the floor. I see the basin, the water is full. Reminded of the price I can't pay. I am so thankful for your water today. Yahovah, I want heart. Yahovah, I want hands. Yahovah, I want clean hands. Yahovah, to worship you the way you created me to. Yahovah, I want clean heart. Yahovah, I want clean hands. Yahovah, I want clean Jehovah, to worship you the way you created me to. Worship you the way you created me to.
Hello, this is Sophania Pappas, Communications Director for B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director, and you just got done listening to Yehovah by Will Spires. The Midrash was extremely thought-provoking in talking about perception versus reality and dealing with the scouts or spies as they talked about them in the Midrash. And it's really interesting how that becomes actually something for us to all to look at. So often we're faced with perception versus reality in a lot of different things.
Well, that we are. And you could say perception is reality. Often in our interpersonal communications, we will think or perceive that a person has said or done or thought a thing. And until that gets straightened out, our perception is the reality we are walking in.
Yes.
I do believe Barry and David were addressing that. Now, their Midrash went along with the two songs we heard Will singing, Yehovah and I Am Yahweh. Basically, it gets down to let God be God and allow him to shatter our preconceived notions, our biases. When we don't understand a thing, let him do it and trust him. Isn't that what he's wanted us to do all along, Sophania?
Oh, yeah. And I've seen so many times in my own life. It's like the Father kind of gives me a slap across the face a little bit. He just says to wake me up and say, did you realize what your perception was? And you allowed that to become your reality. And you found out that that wasn't really even true. And it just causes us to be on guard and teaches us when we look in the mirror and looking at our own lives and saying, I need to pay more attention to what I'm thinking about a certain thing and whether it's real or not.
That's true. And as much as we can put God in a box, we put one another in a box as well. And you know what that makes me think of, Sophania? It makes me think of those first two commandments. Mm-hmm. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Amen.
And that means quite often letting them be them and quit trying to put our God and our neighbors in the boxes we have constructed for them.
Yes.
Seems to me that's harder than it sounds to step away from that.
It made me think about you love your neighbor as you love yourself. And maybe that's our predicament, is that we don't really love ourselves like we really should.
Oh, you have just spoken a lot of truth there. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it at that because we have run out of time for this edition of the Reunion Roadmap. And so on behalf of my friend and colleague, Sophania Pappas, this is Al McCarn saying thank you for joining us. Come back again next week and visit our website for B'nai Yosef North America at B'naiYosefNA.com, BNEYYOSEFNA.com. And until next week, Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on the Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America.